Welcome to Western Technical College Business and Industry Services. This video, along with other training opportunities from Western BIS, are designed to help employees stay informed on the latest trends in today's changing workplace. To learn how Western can support your business, visit us at westerntc.edu/BIS.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this presentation this morning. Again, we are presenting on finding connection and belonging in these virtual times. And I have two co-presenters with me from our team at Western. Our department is the Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement Department, and Julie Christensen, our community-based learning specialist, will be presenting today, as well as Aislinn Hernandez, our diversity and inclusion graduate assistant. So we wanted to start by talking about why this topic matters. Why did we choose this topic, or why was it asked of us to present on? Well, might seem pretty obvious, but finding connection and belonging really matters for most people. For many, work is more than just a place where you get your paycheck. And especially during these uncertain times when families are doing many things from their home environment, which might include schooling children, playing, spending your weekend time, maybe even taking care of sick ones. Finding connection at work can be important because it can give an employee an outlet from the all-consuming things happening at home. So it is also about building community within that workplace. And when there's that sense of community or that sense of belonging, that I really matter to this organization, that actually equates to engagement. And according to a Gallup poll, engaged employees are 17% more productive employees. So connection really can benefit the organization or the employer. When employees have that community, feel connected to one another, there can be an increase of organizational knowledge. In other words, employees know what other employees do and how to use the organizational resources that exist. I know for us at Western, this can mean better service to students. If I understand the various departments and roles within the organization, I can better refer students within our own entity. So really, I think it comes down to that as human beings, connection really matters, and it is almost a basic human need. So that's what we are talking about today. And we're going to start by sharing ideas for coworkers on how to connect with other coworkers. And then we're going to talk about ideas for connecting with clients or customers. In our case at Western, it's students. And then lastly, we'll talk about, from the manager perspective, how to foster that connection within your team. And then wrap up with some final thoughts. So I'm going to turn it over to Julie Christensen to now speak about the coworker-employee connection.
So now that many employees are working from home and aren't able to see one another in the office or in the hallways at work, it's imperative that we adapt and intentionally introduce new ways to connect with our colleagues. One way to do this is by trying to replicate those water cooler moments. This could be done by setting aside a meeting each week with a few colleagues to just catch up, no agenda, no specific work talk, but more to touch base and see how everyone is, what has been going on outside of work, what they did or are going to do over the weekend, and so forth. If some work comes up, that's okay, but it isn't anything that's planned. Another way to do this could be by starting meetings with an icebreaker, allowing others to share and learn more about their coworkers. You'd be surprised what you can learn about others within a few short minutes. Do you miss taking breaks with your coworkers or having lunch together? Reimagine how you can make that happen. Maybe you Zoom with a coworker while you take a coffee break, but instead of Zooming at your desk, you take your laptop into your kitchen and sit at the counter or the table. Or if it's a nice day out, which there might not be too many of now that it's getting colder, but if it is nice, maybe head out to your patio or your deck. A change of scenery will be good for you and allow you to feel more like it's an actual break. Perhaps you miss taking afternoon walks with your work friends or having those walking meetings. Call one another on the phone and head outside for a walk. Research shows that not only is walking good for your health, but it also boosts creativity. And with so many of us on Zoom meetings now, getting up and getting some fresh air will really benefit you on so many levels. If you're someone who is used to sharing an office space with others, or who had cubicles close by and could easily ask a colleague a question, you might also want to consider setting aside time each week to work independently together. I realize that sounds a little bit like an oxymoron, but bear with me. At my last job, I had a colleague who used to work in the office with everyone else, but then she moved to Chicago and began working remotely in her apartment. She really missed our open office layout where she could chat with her coworkers while working. To help recreate this feel, she would video call colleagues on Microsoft Teams at scheduled times, and they would work independently on their own work, but they could also ask questions or chat while doing their work, just like when they were in the office together. Obviously, not all work warrants itself to this, but there might be certain tasks that would work really well. Another fun way to keep and build relationships with coworkers is through social media. You can create an employee Facebook group where employees can share their remote office spaces, their new coworkers, such as pets and/or children, and fun memes. And speaking of memes, if your work is utilizing Microsoft Teams, an easy way to spark connection would be creating a fun employee connection channel on Microsoft Teams with questions for employees to answer, prompts to share, and memes. There are so many fun memes on Microsoft Teams that are being underutilized in many offices, so you should check that out. An employee book club can also be a great option for staff to connect, but also to share information and develop employees. Books can be geared toward professional development or social issues. You can gain employee buy-in by asking for book recommendations, allowing employees to vote on the book of their choice, and asking for employees to lead discussions. Book clubs build camaraderie and teamwork to those who attend, and also provide employees the opportunity to practice leadership roles, such as facilitating group discussions or providing an overview of a chapter. Does your work allow employees time off to volunteer? Volunteering with coworkers is one of the best ways to develop stronger relationships outside the office. Volunteer activities allow employees with varying professional levels and from different departments to build relationships that can carry back into the workplace. Not sure where to find volunteer opportunities? Check out yougetconnected.org, where you can easily search and sign up for a volunteer activity that fits your schedule and interest best. Western employees and students can use Western's You Get Connected site at westerntc.edu/yougetconnected. No boundaries and respect space. It's important to remember that not all employees are as into building relationships as others. Know your audience and try to tailor things around them. If you have a mix of coworkers attending a meeting and you know that some would really enjoy that time to connect and others would rather focus on the work, consider starting the work at the beginning of the meeting and then allowing time at the end of the meeting for those that want to stay and chat. Keep in mind that it's nice to offer options for employees, but to not feel offended if some people choose not to participate in those options given. Now I'll hand it over to Aislinn to talk about connecting with clients and customers.
Thanks, Julie. So I just want to reiterate what Carrie had shared at the beginning of her presentation, that this is really more focused for us at Western about students, but this can be applied for employee and meeting engagement as well as any other client interactions. So while I will be framing it in the mindset of students, it can be adaptable in different ways. So this first slide is trying something new. So now more than ever, there are so many new and creative ways to keep clients engaged. So I'd suggest trying new things to find out what works and what doesn't. And you might be able to adapt your new idea into something sustainable and long-term as a result of this. And I'll just be sharing a couple of things that our department in particular has done since the beginning of March, really, to create new ideas and new launches. But it's okay to also relaunch new things, understanding that it might be bad timing or other outside factors, like people being too busy or things that just randomly pop up that affect the results of a new product launch. So as a department, we have specifically tried newsletters and Zoom rooms. So with newsletters, they're a really nice way of incorporating and highlighting the different areas within our department. It is really broad and we're all kind of focusing on different things. So being able to share one big update with everybody and being able to use free templates like on canva.com and adding photos and adding memes, kind of like what Julie was talking about, and making it eye-catching and being able to switch it up every single time that you send a new newsletter is really nice. It's not like a big blob of text. You know, we're all drowning in emails, so it's kind of nice getting something that's a little different, and it keeps folks engaged while they're at it. Another idea that wasn't successful, but we tried, were Zoom rooms for office hours. So this might be nice. You can set a specific date and time and people can come in, and the nice thing about these is that you don't have to set up a meeting in advance. You can kind of just come in for 5 minutes and ask a question and then leave. So it's just a short time frame that you're dedicating yourself to, and you can multitask and respond to emails or other work during that time slot that you have available, but you're also accessible to others. And another recommendation would be Facebook groups. So for us, we created a student Facebook group. So it's a really nice way of creating community and sharing like-minded thoughts with peers. And specifically for our students, it is a good outlet to know that they're in it together and also feel supported. So in this section, I will be talking about adaptability and virtual friendly fun. So I'll be splitting this into two. So the first one is thinking of what you've been able to do in the past in real life, and finding ways to replicate it virtually. So for me, I typically lead the Make Change film series. So we would host it in a large room, watch a film, and share a meal. And obviously we can't do this anymore, but we can try to create something similar. So we will be bringing it to Zoom this year. And the nice thing about Zoom is that you have so many options on what you can do. So what we're planning on doing is screen sharing the film that we're hosting, using breakout rooms to still create facilitation about social justice conversations, and having that meal component was a big part of what we did. So we'll be offering gift cards for our students that attend. So while it's not the same feel, we can kind of try to create something that's similar. And the other part of adaptability is understanding the needs of the clients and knowing that they're changing constantly throughout a short period of time. So for us, within the Cavalier Cupboard, it means finding at least one evening hour to be more accommodating and accessible for our students, keeping in mind that they have other roles and identities that might affect when they're available to pop in and grab a package of food, for example. And also gathering feedback, whether it's a survey or something a little bit more informal, like a casual conversation, for example. This next part is admittedly my favorite. So icebreakers and games. So I have created a shared Outlook document, and there's a ton of different resources on icebreakers and games, and I have listed whether they cost money or if they're free to do. So the first thing that I do want to share are table topics. I always have them next to my desk. I love bringing these out at the beginning of a meeting. There's a ton of different questions, lighthearted and fun, but others that kind of require more critical thinking. And it's an excellent way to kick off a meeting or a club. You get to hear other people's thoughts and experiences, and you get to know them just in a short period of time. Another activity that I like to start off meetings with are roses, buds, and thorns. So this is an adaptation of highs and lows, but highs and lows, typically you only talk about the good and the bad, and it might feel like an awkward limbo sometimes, but the bud component here really allows you to reflect on something that you're looking forward to, and it's a reflective activity that allows everybody to be vulnerable in sharing aspects of their identities, and you get to know what's going on in their lives and what's impacting them. And then for trivia or just gaming, Jackbox or Scribble or Kahoot, these are all great ways of keeping students engaged, or your clients, just something fun and out of the ordinary. And you can do a screen share and chat while you're doing it. So totally would recommend this. And lastly, we are on Zoom, so keeping it interactive, creating polls, whether it's before a meeting or as you're in the meeting. They're great for would you rathers and kind of having everybody share why they would pick a specific option. And talking in the chat, you clearly wouldn't want to interrupt somebody while they're talking, but making sure that you're being supportive or you're agreeing with them, that's all great and fun. And I also want to talk about social media. Julie was kind of talking about this, but having Instagram takeovers or Facebook live sessions, it really gives your client an in on what you're doing and who is staffing the department. So while they can't physically be present, it's a great way to feel a part of the organization and kind of just know what's going on and feeling like they're a part of that community as well. And lastly, I want to talk about the Women's Initiative Network. So I've been leading this project, and it is specifically for Western students, but it's a great way for students to get involved and find community and seek professional development. So not only do they get to connect with their peers, but they get to network with different speakers as well. And our next event is on October 6th at 11:30 a.m. Now I'll hand it off to Carrie.
Thank you, Aislinn. So just before the stay-at-home, rather large work-from-home experiment began, the Gallup organization shared a really helpful article about supporting your employees while working from home. And if you're not familiar with Gallup, they are a wonderful organization. They're actually international, and they research employee engagement and well-being. So they shared this article, and not surprisingly, they cited that communication is the key to creating a highly productive virtual work environment. I found this article shortly before I started working at home, and it was really helpful in centering me and thinking about what am I going to do as a manager to foster good connection and community within my team. And so I think communication is key to all of that. Yeah, as managers, we set the tone for our employees. Are you a manager that is fostering connection and giving employees the permission to use work time to fulfill that basic human need to connect and relate to one another? Remember, employees are more productive if they feel engaged and connected to the workplace. So I would offer that you find creative ways to create those casual work moments, because those can often be the point for connection. So try different strategies. Just like Aislinn said, don't be afraid to try something new and then retry it again. So we, in a more team environment, just like with students, we've tried virtual office hours. And I have found as a manager that these work fairly well. Not only is it giving me time to check my email and just kind of do some things at my desk, but it also gives my team time to jump in my office hours and ask me that casual question without having to schedule a big meeting about it. And I know that my team likes to verbally process things with me or just kind of chat it out about some of the challenges that they're going to. They know that when they do that, they're going to get an authentic Carrie response. And so I think that's half the reason why they would pop into those virtual office hours. Another thing we've tried doing is to bring that casual communication to our work setting is to respond to email messages using a video clip or an audio clip. So again, it gets that authentic response. Also, you can better project your emotion or your feelings in that response. And I think it's actually more efficient because you're not taking all that time to craft that wordy response or wordsmithing your response so that it captures your feeling. I would say that right now, team meetings is more important than ever. So finding the right frequency for team meetings, we meet weekly, and a part of every team meeting is icebreakers or a time to chat about life. Sometimes that's more important than the agenda itself, and sometimes it's less time. It's just, the first 15 minutes. It can kind of vary, but letting your team kind of dictate how much time they need to just kind of check in and connect to one another is really important. We also have another meeting, I know Julie mentioned this at the beginning of the presentation, where we have a time every other week to meet with another group of employees that we used to share space with. So we meet with them every other week, and it is more about personal connection, but a lot of times in there, we talk about work connection stuff too. It's kind of like the picture on the slide. You just don't know how things are connecting with other employees in your workplace unless you share them. And so I think that's why communication is so important in this time of connection. It can feel very isolating when we're working from home and it feels like we're working independently until you start talking about something or an interaction you had and you find out that other employees had some sort of connecting event to that moment. Ultimately, with communication, I think transparency is really important in these virtual times. I know transparency is kind of a buzzword of the times as well, but I think there's a reason for that. Your employees likely need reassurance that things are going well, that things are okay. And by giving them a clue into your workday, what is happening, can kind of ease any nervous feelings that might exist. So I think we often share things that are completed or events that are coming up. But how often do you share things that are in progress? You know, you don't have to give a lot of detail if you can't, but by simply letting them know I am working on XYZ can be comforting and helpful. During a time that seems very uncertain, maybe doing some of the more normal things can actually be pretty helpful. So during March and April, when we at Western started working from home, things felt very unpredictable. And we had scheduled an annual planning and team building retreat. And we really wondered if that should be something we continue with. But we ultimately decided that it was important to stick to the normal. And so we went ahead and did that. But we made some adjustments in how we did it. And so we used online tools such as like survey instruments and Zoom polls and breakout rooms. We also changed the structure of the event. So we did 2 half days with a week in between the 2 meetings to kind of just give space to the conversation. And we found that was pretty helpful. And with any good planning, your plans should be agile anyways. So even though we were planning for a future that we're not quite sure about, it was still good to have those kind of that time set aside to give us purpose and a look into where we might be heading. I think as a manager, like Aislinn talked about, this is, or maybe it was Julie, this is going to be important to recognize the differences in your employees and what they need as individuals. Maybe you're an organization that uses StrengthsFinder, and maybe you can think about their strengths and what are they going to need from the workplace that will really feed their strengths. And so as a manager, you need to kind of be aware of that, but at the same time, know that every employee needs connections, even if they don't seek it out themselves. So what are some ways that you can foster that as a manager? Maybe you can find a collaborative project that 2 peers can work on together. Maybe this wasn't something they would have done in those more normal times, but now it could give them that connection that really could help increase productivity. I think ultimately, this is about putting your team first. And that is also kind of cliche to say, because I think as managers, we probably always do that. But some things that I've tried to do to just provide reassurance and make sure my team knows that I'm here for them is to just be quick on email responses. That's the #1 way we're communicating right now. And so I'm trying hard to not leave their emails in my inbox for too long. And also one-on-ones. So we're an organization that does one-on-ones pretty routinely, but at the start of this virtual time, I was sure to ask them, like, how frequently would they like to have one-on-ones? And I think that can vary based on the employee. Same as for time length of that meeting. You know, maybe you schedule 2 half-an-hour ones in the week if that's more preferred by the employee, but for someone else, maybe you meet with them 1 hour a week. So I think these things can be customized based on the individual. So as we conclude our presentation this morning, I just wanted to end with some final thoughts, some questions for you to think about as we've given you a lot of tips and ideas for how you can find connection in your workplace. So I just want you to think about, how will these virtual chimes actually change your organizational culture? Will it be for the better? What are things you're doing now to engage with your coworkers or build engagement with your clients that you'd want to continue? For us at Western, we have seen a huge increase in attendance of our professional development offerings. The things that we offer in-house are actually reaching more employees, and we're having better engagement. So I wonder if we will ever leave the virtual environment for certain events. How will these times change your organizational communication? And will it improve communication? Is communication channels and challenges being fixed right now that you can carry over into our new normal? And what might you consider in regards to clarity and transparency? And then lastly, how will these times create efficiencies? What have you done now that might be actually more efficient or more productive engaging with coworkers or your clients or your customers? And maybe you won't change those things for the future. I know for us in a department that is constantly collaborating internally and externally, we will probably continue to use Zoom in this new normal because it removes the travel barrier, and we can bring bigger groups of people together more efficiently and a little bit more conveniently.
Thank you for viewing this video from Western Technical College Business and Industry Services. Learn more about the hundreds of training and development opportunities available for your employees at westerntc.edu/BIS.